Welcome to season 10 of Accountants Are Sexy, Changed My Mind. In this season we have 10 brand spanking new guests to introduce you to. We'll be talking about things like exit plans, niching your business, you'll meet one of the captains. We're going to talk about finding your spiritual home, and we even have, of course, a discussion on AI and how it can improve your business. So stick with us, but before I introduce you to any guests, please meet our new sponsor, Swoop for Advisors.
For those of you who haven't heard of Swoop for Advisors, we partner with accountants and bookkeepers to help their SME clients get access to grants, loans, commercial mortgages, equity investment, R&D, savings, and much, much more. We're a one-stop shop funding platform for SMEs, helping them find all the best available options in the market across a wide range of products to support their growth at all stages of their life cycle. Our job is to make you look like the heroes in your clients' eyes.
So another massive thank you from me to Swoop for Advisors for sponsoring the show. Before I introduce you to the next guest, can I just ask for you to take a second and make sure that you are subscribed to any channel that you're watching this on, be that Spotify or Apple or iTunes or wherever you are. If you just take a moment to subscribe to the channel, it's really helpful information to us to understand how this podcast is received, and we can just continue to improve it the more we know. So thank you for taking the time, and I'm going to hand you over to the next guest. Well, hello and welcome back to another episode of Accountants Are Sexy, Changed My Mind. Today we have Sam Tasker-Grindley from Swoop with us today. I've been trying to get him on the show for ages, but we keep on missing each other. So I'm really, really, really happy that you can join me today. So welcome.
Thank you for having me, Kelly. I know it has been, well, it's probably my bad, isn't it? More than your bad. I'm sorry that we keep missing each other.
Yeah, we're both busy bees.
It's going to be worth the wait.
Bloody better be. No, you have been so busy this year. Every time I look at what you're up to on LinkedIn, you are here, you're there, you're everywhere. And off air, you were saying like how crazy it's been. So tell, if you wouldn't mind, give a little introduction as to what Swoop is, and then let's have a dink into your past year.
Yeah. So Swoop's been going for about 5 years. As a direct-to-business offering, and then we've been working with accountants and bookkeepers and other types of advisors for the last 2 years. Essentially, what we provide is a huge toolkit for SMEs to get all of the best available options across a number of different types of products. So that includes grants, loans, equity, and then a range of savings offerings. So deposit savings accounts, energy switching, insurance, etc., etc. So what we're trying to provide is almost a one-stop shop for businesses to get all the best available options to help them to survive or to grow in what is a pretty challenging economic environment. And the biggest part for me is, or what I get most passionate, excited about is, yes, we're a tech platform and we've got some snazzy tech in the background, but we also provide a very strong human element. So we allow a business to speak to someone whenever they have any particular challenge or are looking for funding. And I think that's quite different from what's available out there in the market. And if you think about high street banks, just as an example, lots of branches have closed, lots of relationship managers don't exist anymore. Yeah. So where does an SME go to get all the best possible options for them? So that's what we provide. And since I've come into the business, we're putting accountants and bookkeepers and advisors front and center of that conversation, giving them that toolkit to go and be rock stars in front of their clients.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. Like the accountants and bookkeepers that we work with, they're the guides, right? They're the ones that are empowering other businesses. Yeah. I have a little mantra. I don't know if it's a mantra, but my purpose for helping accountants is to help spread the wealth, the divide of wealth more fairly and equally across all people. And that's putting it into the hands of smaller business owners. And I think if we can empower as many accountants as possible to do that as much as possible, we are going to live in a much better world. That's my view.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think if you put yourself in you're a business owner. If we were all to put ourselves in the business owner's shoes, there's so much information out there. It's even just in the grants landscape, and let alone the funding landscape and everything else. There's so much out there. Like, where on earth do you go, or how do you digest it and make it something that is easily understandable?
Yeah, it's quite scary, actually. It is quite scary because there is so much out there. People just kind of withdraw. That can't possibly be for me, and they withdraw. But before we get there, tell me about what you've been up to this year, because honestly, you're everywhere.
Yeah, I think I'm competing with Chris Downing last year, and he was around the country like a Duracell bunny. I feel like I'm doing the same sort of thing this year, but I'm basically just traveling. I've always been a fan of face-to-face, and I feel like that's where you make the most impact in building relationships. And I think if we're all honest with each other, we've all got a bit lazy since COVID, and we always choose the most convenient and comfortable option, which is to sit in your pajamas and do Zoom meetings back to back to back. But
you see me.
What are you wearing under there? But that just doesn't do it for me. If I was to sit at home every day and just go square-eyed looking at Zoom or that box all day, I would lose the plot, and I probably wouldn't be very good to live with either for my wife. So I just love getting out and about, and I don't always just talk about Swoop. I'll be talking about other stuff and trying to support accounting firms and bookkeepers in different ways. It's not all funding, but yeah, I just like to get out and about. And the week before last, I was up in Scotland, and the original plan was to do that in a camper van, by the way, but I'm glad I didn't in the end, because Storm Babette probably would have washed me away. But Scotland, I feel is quite underserviced in terms of the support it gets from a lot of the apps and app partners and software. So I've always wanted to go and do that, and that will definitely be an annual trip up there, because some amazing people, amazing businesses, amazing accounting firms up there, and had a great time.
Yeah, and it's a lovely, beautiful country.
It is a beautiful country. Even when it's raining, it's still beautiful.
But you have to. It's always raining. Apart from the time that I went with my husband, it was the week that we got engaged. He took me up to the top of Ben Nevis to propose, which was lovely.
Oh, nice.
But it was the driest, not on that day, but it was the driest week that Scotland had seen in decades. And we were planning to go whitewater rafting, and there was no water. I mean, if you trust Scotland to do one thing for you,
and it still let you down.
Yeah. So you've been everywhere. You've been on the all of the events, Accountex, DAS, the road shows. I think you've done something with Amanda C. Watts for Profit First.
Yes.
Like, you've been everywhere. Are we to see more of that next year? Are you going to be as active next year?
I'll definitely. Well, I've got a baby on the way in February, so my wife might try to stop me being quite as active myself. I mean, Swoop. Yeah, Swoop's not going to be slowing down anytime soon. We'll definitely be as active. I think we're going to, in my opinion, there are too many accounting conferences now next year, and they're all back to back to back to back. And yes, it's great that there's all these opportunities for the industry to meet up, but from an exhibitor's point of view, it's a lot. It's not just the cost of exhibiting every single time, it's the time spent on the conference, where you're not focusing on your current partners quite so much. So I think we might be a little bit more deliberate sometimes as the ones we don't do. I think on the software side, we get that FOMO. We feel like we have to be at every single one of them. But really, if you sit back and think about it, is that actually the best use of your time and your resources and everything else? So we might not be at everyone. Yeah. I'm not going to say which ones we'll be at and which ones we won't be, but I'm a huge fan actually of doing more of the intimate stuff. I think you get more impact selfishly, but also the accountants and bookkeepers we work with get more from us in those more intimate roundtables and smaller events. So I think we'll do more of that next year.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that. I think I liken it to the difference between webinars and workshops. Now, webinars are okay, but you've got a half-engaged audience because they're probably doing something else. They're probably looking at elsewhere or carrying on with their work. When you do a workshop, it's much richer. You get so much more value out of it. And it's nice to give that value, and it's nice to have that received as well.
do you know what? This is why I much prefer to do team training sessions in person where I can, or like I said, in a workshop style, because there's nothing worse than doing a team training session with 5 or 10 people and they've all got their cameras off. And
It's soul destroying.
It is a bit, as a presenter, it's soul destroying, but you also know that they're probably not concentrating. So where's the value in that? Whereas they're not going to do that. If I'm sat in front of them on doing a presentation, or we're doing a workshop together, they're not going to be sat there doing something else, because that's just damn rude. But why is it not rude in a virtual environment? But
where they're just sitting there picking their toenails or something.
Exactly.
I don't know why that image came up into my head. That's gross. That can leave now.
I just think and I'm sure you find the same. I just think there's so much power still in face to face, and I think it's one of the bad things maybe that's happened as a result of COVID is that there's just too much over reliance on just doing everything digitally. And I'm trying to rage against that and get out and about as much as possible.
Oh, Sam, you've said the magic word, rage. I'm all for rage. Whatever we're going to rage against, it just means passion. So
Exactly.
all for that. I'm with you. I think next year, and we're talking like before the year has started, but this will be released in January. Next year, I'm going to be going on my own little road show as well.
Exciting. Are you allowed to say anything?
I can't say anything else because I haven't got the plans mapped out. But I'm dead excited because, like you, I've been behind my screen for nearly a decade. I don't do local networking anymore because my audience isn't there. So I'm just behind a screen all of the time. So I want to go and feel people. I want to give them a hug. So I'm going to go and do it.
Yeah, and you can build a great brand like you have. You can build a great brand from home. But whether you can have the same long-term, sticky, loyal relationships, I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like the connection is much better in person. There is no denying it. It's just making sure that you can get to the people. Like you said, Scotland, underserved because it's quite far away.
It is quite.
So let's come back to funding, because I'm going to be asking naive questions because it's not my area of expertise at all.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty damn sure that if an accountant can add this to their armoury, they're going to have more insightful conversations with their clients. They're going to be able to retain clients, which is massive for me.
Yeah.
I think people misunderstand marketing, by the way. Marketing is not just upfront, get them through the door. It's about the retention of them as well.
100%.
So talk to me about how you're supporting accountants at the moment with that kind of customer relationship.
Yeah, it's a good question. So there's lots of different types of accounting firms, and they're all and bookkeepers, and they're all on very different stages of their journey. And we work with some startup accounting firms that literally just begun, and then we work with RSM, who are the 6th biggest accounting firm in the world, and everything in between. So
I go and steal their coffee at events.
We can't assume that every firm is going to react in the same way or has the same experience coming into funding. So we're very big on process. So understanding what the process is currently within the partners we're working with, and trying to embed something into the processes they've got already, rather than trying to get them to create whole new ones, because doesn't matter what size the accounting firm or bookkeeping firm is, they're all busy. They all are being dragged in 100 different directions anyway. So, and we're not just competing for their time against, other financial brokers or other funding platforms or whatever. We're also competing against any other piece of software or app that's competing for that precious time to embed something into their processes. So we're very big on process. We're very big on education. So giving the accountants we're working with the tools to have at least some understanding of what's going on, and being able to share insight and thought leadership, etc., so that they can have great conversations with their clients quite easily and be able to spot opportunities and talk about not just uncovering problems, but then having a solution to go with. But across the board, across all of the different things, grants, loans, commercial mortgage, property, equity, savings, it's hugely valuable for accountants to be talking about with their clients, because the clients are desperate for this information, and it's very difficult for them to find it themselves. So just by purely being the ones that have delivered that information or being able to find a solution for them, that is creating stickier relationships. It is going to help them either to grow or to survive a tough period. And if the accountants can become front and center of that, they're good.
I think a lot of people and accountants sometimes, this isn't a generalization, but they do sometimes forget that business owners are not accountants and don't necessarily know what accountants do. So they come with these assumptions and they don't know what to ask for. So they might come and join the practice. I did this. I've spoken about it on the podcast before. I signed up with an accountant. I didn't know the difference between accounting and bookkeeping. And they didn't take the time to explain to me the difference either, assuming that I knew. So at the end of the year, so all the way through the year, I'm saying, what do I need to do? Do I need to be doing something? Is there something I should be doing? And they're like, it's fine. The end of the year, we come and we'll sort it. I didn't have a clue up until the point where they asked me for my information. And I was like, what information? So this is my first year of business. What are you talking about? So, and then when I joined a different accountant, I assumed wrongly that they would be guiding me with things like funding opportunities, because why wouldn't you? You've got access to it in my head, but that wasn't part of the package. So I didn't know what I was signing up to. So through my experiences with various accountants, you have to remember that your clients are quite naive and they don't necessarily know what to ask. So these conversations help you provide a lot more value just by making it a lot clearer what's available and what's not.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just asking the question sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, what are your plans for the business?
Yeah.
And then, well, how are you going to fund that, or how are you going to get there? And so the questions that can be asked can be very simple, but it's just to get you talking. Like you said, as a business owner, your accounting firm, by the sounds of it, didn't listen to you or didn't ask the right questions to truly get to the bottom and understand.
It wasn't on the right package to ask the right questions, which is quite interesting. So if I was on a higher package, then more questions might have been asked, is my interpretation of that, which is such a shame because there was opportunity.
Well, yeah. You might have wanted to be on that other package, but you didn't know enough about it, I suppose.
Exactly.
Very strange.
Yeah.
The other thing when it comes to funding is accountants and bookkeepers, I think at the moment, completely underrate their value in the conversation. So a business is four or five times more likely to be successful in a funding deal if there are accountants involved in it. And we've got stats to back that up. The conversion rate is much higher, and that's because of the integrity of the information that's being provided, how quickly everything can be provided, documents can be put together. It's also a huge upselling opportunity for accounting firms by being involved in the funding conversation, so they can sell management information, management accounts, and cash flow forecasting that is needed to support those applications. So it's
so instead of selling management accounts, which means nothing to anybody, by the way, until you need it, is creating the relevancy.
Yeah.
So don't talk to them about you need management accounts. Talk to them about their goals in business and say, if we're going to go for this funding, this is what's going to help you get there. That's a much richer conversation to have.
Completely agree. And lots of that the words selling or sales gives a lot of accounting firms
the shivers,
doesn't it? But like you just said, it doesn't need to be a sell, does it? It just needs to be, this is the tool that's going to help you manage and grow your business better. So you should consider, just trying to explain.
I speak about this all the time. People say, well, I want bigger clients, I want the bigger retainers. So instead of having a £200 retainer, I want a £500 or £600 retainer. And then I want to be delivering management reports. And I'm like, great. So what does that mean for the business? Why should the business invest in it? Because they're not just going to say, yeah,
Yeah.
Let's just have this stuff for no reason. You need to connect it to something. And
Yeah.
funding is the perfect way, especially high growth. People want to talk about startups all the time. It depends on what startup you want. Do you want one that's selling soap from the kitchen table? Or do you want someone who's got a vision that wants to, hit 6 figures in their first year and has the world beyond that? So defining what they need as their goals is going to help you have much better relationships with them.
Yeah, I mean, defining a startup is a whole nother ball game, and we probably still consider ourselves to be a startup, and we've got 130 people working at Swoop. So yeah, there's different types of startups, aren't there?
Yeah, two things I always challenge people on: what is a startup, and what is a small business? Like, because they mean different things to different people.
Yeah, and a small business to Deloitte is very different to a small business to a smaller accounting firm. I mean, for most big accounting firms, you're a small business if you're under the audit threshold, which is 10 million, and a 10 million.
Which is like a massive out of reach goal for so many people.
Yeah,
it's crazy. So it's not just funding when you come to supporting accountants, of which you are one.
I am.
So you have great insight there, but you also get involved with non-exec work as well and support some accountancy firms. So how about you tell us about that bit?
Yeah, so I didn't do this deliberately. I just sort of fell into supporting some of the firms that I've worked quite closely with over the years and have built good relationships with. And I suppose they've just asked me to get involved in various different parts of the business, or where they feel like they've lacking knowledge or confidence or support, or for some it's they're on their own as the leader of their business and they just need a sounding board or someone to hold them accountable or to keep pushing them forward. Because if you're on your own, okay, the industry is a nice industry and it's becoming nice, there's much more collaboration, etc. But sometimes you want an outside perspective, not someone who's in the weeds themselves. So yeah, I've loved it because it's kept my eye in the game. So I feel I'm very much on top of the challenges, or most of the challenges that accounting firms are going through. And I'm there to specifically try and help some of those overcome it. One of we said we would briefly talk about this, like one of the bigger challenges that we all know in the industry at the moment is recruitment and resources and capacity. That's one of the things that I work with pretty much all of them on, is how are you going about your recruitment? And I'm not just saying this to you because you're in marketing, but a lot of recruitment is marketing, especially these days. And I think a lot of firms haven't quite cottoned on to that fact. But there's a few firms out there that I know have waiting lists of people that want to work in their accounting firm. So they don't think there's a talent shortage. Yeah. And the reason that there's a waiting list is because what they portray on social media, TikTok or whatever they choose to do, makes it seem like a fun, supportive, different type of environment to work with accounting firm.
I will challenge that slightly. I agree with you, but I want to challenge it as well.
Yeah.
So I know the firms that you're talking about that have waiting lists of people, and what I think I see, and it's a perception thing, is that they don't mind getting people in who need the training up. So they're not expecting somebody to come in as the perfect, well-rounded person who's just going to control everything, and just come in at this level. They have systems in place and processes in place, and they have a surety of a kind of career path. Whereas some accountants I see are trying to recruit a top-level accountant for maybe enough money and with no brand equity, with no kind of values and story behind them, no reason to join them. And I think that's where it falls apart. These guys are like, come in at this level and we will scale your career. And I think that's a whole different message.
Yeah, and I think also what they're recognising is that the role of an accountant has changed as well. So do you actually want someone who's maybe been institutionalised and thinks the way a traditional accountant would think, or do you understand that the profession is moving towards being more human and having more human skills? It's not just about number crunching anymore.
Yeah.
And you want people to understand that their personal brand's important right from the get-go. They're going to build their networks and all those other things. And it's not just about technical skills now. It's about all of those other things. And those are the people you're going to attract, I think, by showcasing that part of your firm.
So here's a question then. Historically, if you thought about an accountant, I think Rachel Harris uses the term pale stale male, but let's just say an older gentleman wearing a suit, and probably more of an introvert than an extrovert. That would be the picture. What would you say today's picture is of an accountant, traditional accountant?
So it still depends. It's the majority is still probably that. Like if you think about it, but we often are in such an echo chamber that we hang around with all these accounting firms that are different and have moved on or have started in the last 5 years. So they've been able to start. They haven't had to go through a level of change and transformation. They've just been able to start as these fun, slightly quirky, different type of accounting firms. So I think probably overall it's still the same. Probably hasn't really changed all that much, but I do quite a lot still with the ICAW, and still I'm quite passionate. I support them because they've done a lot for my career. But they've got in some ways they have a bit of an image problem. They've not been able to necessarily move with the times, and they struggle, I think, sometimes to showcase how the role of an accountant has changed compared to where it was 10, 15 years ago. So my image of a current accountant, or a typical what I would want to be an accountant these days, they just need to have completely different skills. They need to have human skills. They need to have tech skills. They need to know a lot more than just putting together a set of accounts. So they might have tattoos and beards and wear caps to meetings.
Beards. Tattoos. Oh my gosh.
I just don't think it matters. Like there's no need to conform now to a particular stereotype, and I think there's also nothing wrong with being the traditional type. You shouldn't be apologetic about that either, because there is still a need for those types of accountants as well. It's just
it's relatability, right? You just have to make not make yourself. You just have to be you, so you become relatable to the people who like you.
Yeah.
And I think people misunderstand this authenticity thing, like it's something that they need to fit themselves into. When actually it's more about just stripping away the crap. You know, I don't need to be this, I don't need to be that. I just need to show up, care about my clients, do my job really well, and tell people about it. Yeah. That's authentic.
Absolutely. It's just fine. It's fine to be yourself now, isn't it? It sounds cheesy, but it's just fine to be yourself as an accountant. You don't have to, like when I first started 10 how long ago? 12 years ago now, maybe more, maybe even longer. I'm getting old now. I had to wear
with me, right?
I had to have gone to uni and got a degree. I had to have got at least a 2-1. I had to wear a shirt and tie and a suit. Like had to, and then you just get put on this path where you're made to sort of think that you should try and be partner one day. That's the career path for you that's all set out, and it's like you just end up with all these people just on autopilot in their careers and never really thinking about actually whether. And I was a rubbish accountant. I really wasn't very good, and I wasn't passionate about being sat there and putting together a set of numbers. I wanted to do the stuff that I'm doing now, building relationships.
You want to talk to people.
Talk to people. Yeah.
Traditional accountants don't want to talk to people.
Yeah, they're happy. Generally speaking, sat behind a computer bashing out the numbers, but that's not good enough anymore. It won't be moving forward. Those human skills are very important.
So talking about moving forward, another thing that you're quite passionate about is helping and supporting the younger generation come through the ranks. So what's your view at the moment on the younger generation coming through? Is there enough of them, first of all?
It's a good question. If you speak to the various different institutes, ACA, ICAW, ACCA, AAT, they'll tell you there's still enough. There's still plenty coming through, and there's probably more than ever that are coming through. I think part of what the profession struggles with at the moment is retention of those within practice or within whatever we want to call it. It's more and more, I think, are using the qualifications as a stepping stone into other careers. So it's not necessarily attracting them at the beginning, but it's making them realize that there is an amazing career path in finance or in accounting in the various different forms, and being able to better showcase what that is. So I think there's not a problem them coming through, but there's a problem. The talent shortage is not at the beginning of the journey, I don't think. I think it's 3, 4, 5 years we're seeing a big gap.
It does seem, and I was looking at numbers, and I can't retain numbers, so I'm going to butcher this completely. But I think there's something like a couple of thousand accounting and bookkeeping startups every month. Like, people are just registering themselves and doing their own thing. That's growing massively. So do you think that some of them are disappearing down this route? Do you think it's do you think that because of the way that the youth are raised, do you think that that's in their mind already, or do you think they see an opportunity later? It's
a good question. I wonder what the age demographic of those that are setting up by themselves is. It's very very interesting to go and look into that. Who is it? People that started their career, got fed up in the rat race, or chasing a career path that actually wasn't suited to them, and they've wanted to set up to create freedom and be their own boss and that sort of thing? Or is it people are literally bursting onto the scene and setting up?
Yeah. See, I've interviewed quite a few people on this podcast who are younger than 30, who have started their own stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know, there seems to be a swell of it, more empowerment there. I mean, also going back to Lucy Cohen, she was like 22 or something when she started, or 21. So I don't know. I feel like accountants are more empowered to start their own businesses.
Yeah, which I think it's a great thing, but it's not. It's also not for everyone.
No,
and that's fine as well. And I think I've learned since being in the startup world that startups aren't for everyone. Like, some people crave structure and where they can see the development, but with startup.
Yeah. And paychecks as well. Paychecks are nice.
Yeah, paychecks are nice. Yeah. With a startup, there's no one there behind you pushing you. You've got to be pushing yourself. You've got to have that determination, resilience, self-motivation, and that's as the leader in a startup. But then also as you start to grow a team, those people need those same sorts of skills as well, because there's not going to be defined job descriptions necessarily. You've got to be a bit of a go-getter. Definitely not for everyone. But
and the competition is becoming stronger and stronger. There is definitely enough business out there for every accountant that exists, for sure, because for every accountant that starts up, you've got like another 1,000 businesses that are starting up. So there's definitely enough business.
I think just quick. I think a lot of firms starting, or some established firms as well, they're getting less obsessed with turnover growth for turnover growth's sake, and they're starting to think more about profitability, but more about managing a smaller group of clients, but doing more with them. I think we're starting to see a little bit more of that, where they'll look at their pricing, look at what services they're providing for each of their clients, and get rid of the ones that don't want that type of service, because that helps to solve the resource problem to an extent as well.
Yeah, it really does. But then you delve into the realms of niching, which scares the bejeebers out of people. So it's all about, and I talk about this quite often, like, I don't care what your pricing is. I don't care how many clients that you got. What I care about is, are you hitting your goals and are you living the life that you want? They're the only two measurements I care about. All the numbers in between just have to support those two things.
Yeah.
Period. And it's a funny thing. So you've got a baby on the way in February.
I do.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else exciting coming up that you want to share with us?
Well, there's always exciting things going on. But I suppose if I could just give a piece of advice to anyone that is listening. I'm sure you've heard all this sort of stuff before, but we talked, Kelly, before we came online, a bit about advisory and accounting. It's always this buzzword. It's been this buzzword, isn't it, for 10, 15, 20 years, and everyone.
Yeah. Nobody knows what it means.
Yeah, Well, yeah, and everyone's telling all of these accounting firms and bookkeepers they should be doing it, but they should be doing it, whatever it means. They should be looking at different ways to add value to the clients. But I'm a great believer that you get what you pitch for, and this comes into what you do as well, Kelly, and how you can support your partners. But when I say you get what you pitch for, a lot of these accounting firms, especially where they've come on a transformation from being compliance led to trying to dip their toe into advisory and do more on that side. If all they've ever spoken to their clients about in the past is chasing documents or chasing information for the accounts, that's all their clients are ever going to see them for. They're not going to know that the accounting firm can help them with those other bells and whistles, including funding. So they need to start to change the communication and what they're delivering. But the second point is, it's also not going to change overnight. So I see so many firms that will try it for like a month, and they'll send a couple of emails or whatever about slightly things than they used to, and they're like, "Oh, I'm not getting engagement. It's not working."
Work.
But you've got to take them on a journey with you, and you've got to build the trust, and it can take time. And it's the same with posting on LinkedIn. People lose heart if they're not getting enough engagement when they start doing it straight away. But it's just about consistency. And then as you start to grow your following and build trust, etc., then you get more and more and more. And these things don't happen overnight. I suppose if I can just give any message, is you get what you pitch for. So start talking about the right things, but be consistent and keep going at it, and don't give up because you've not made traction or made impact over a month. Just stick with it.
Yeah, just because you dipped your toe in doesn't mean that you felt the heat of the water. That is another analogy that I just made up on the spot. Could you tell?
Own it.
Own it. No, you're right though. People say to me all the time, LinkedIn doesn't work. Facebook doesn't work. Well, I'm telling you what, it works for some people. So it's not that it doesn't work, it's that you haven't done it consistently enough to make it work, because it works.
It does work.
So yeah, I completely agree with you. Whatever you're doing, lean into it, and that's the only way that it's gonna be effective for you.
Great.
So one final question for you, Sam. I'm fairly sure you know what's coming up. What is the sexiest thing about accountants?
I'm not that prepared for this question. I should be, given the name of the. I think the sexiest thing about accountants is the value that they're able to give to business owners, and not, and I mean business owners, not businesses. And I think it's the I always hark back to the human side of things, but the accounting firm more and more these days, and bookkeepers have all of these amazing tools and things that they can do to help a business owner to achieve what they want to achieve. And I think there's something quite sexy about that.
Yeah.
I think it's sexy anyway. We can be the superheroes of SMEs and businesses, and I think there's something quite cool about that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I appreciate you coming on. We are fast approaching, by the time this is released, we are fast approaching 100 episodes of Accountants Are Sexy. So it's lovely to have you in this season. I appreciate you coming here. If people want to get hold of you, I assume the Swoop website is a great place to go and do some research, but you specifically, is it LinkedIn?
Yeah, LinkedIn is probably where I'm most at, if you've not muted me on LinkedIn already. Because yeah, LinkedIn, or however you want to contact me, just contact.
Don't mute, ring the bell. Ring that bell. Right, and we will leave it there. I appreciate you coming on, and I will see you shortly.
Thank you, Kelly.
And just a final word for me before I let you go. I wanted to say thank you so much for listening to Accountants Are Sexy. When I say your thoughts are the only thing that matters, I truly mean it, because this show is nothing without listeners, right? So please like, subscribe, comment, slide into my DMs. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you want more of, and I will try and deliver. Apart from that, I hope you enjoyed today, and I'll see you next week.